Hey, good morning, y'all. We are here today. My name is James Lankford. I'm Senator from Oklahoma and Chairman of the Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee on Regulatory Affairs and the Federal Workforce, here with Ranking Member Heidi Heitkamp. The two of us want to get a chance to make an announcement today of something that we're rolling out that will be a bipartisan effort to be able to deal with something that American businesses and American individuals talk about often. That is the speed, frequency, and relevancy of federal regulations. Federal regulations continue to roll out over and over again, as they have for a long time. This is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is a bureaucracy issue. And it is the authority of any particular bureaucracy, of any particular agency, to be able to promulgate rules and to make sure those rules are actually promulgated consistent with the law, number one. They have to be able to follow statutes, but they also have to be able to follow things like the Administrative Procedures Act and have a maximum amount of decision making within both those that are affected by the decisions and those that are obviously imposing those regulations as well from the agencies. We want them to be able to have conversation. We want to be able to make sure that any regulation that's promulgated actually is by the people, for the people. It's a basic principle. The government doesn't run all businesses. Businesses are an extension of our economy, and the government comes alongside to be able to set a regulatory framework. And when the business of government is to run businesses, then we have a problem. So this is a simple idea. It's allowing any individual within the United States to be able to lay out before their own government in a simple way to be able to put on an online piece and to say, if you'd like to help cut red tape, identify specific regulations that are the problem. And as you identify a specific regulation that's a problem in your business or to your family or to your school, whatever it may be, we can then walk through the process with our staff of helping those agencies identify these and say, this is a problem regulation. How do we deal with this? How do we solve this in the days ahead? We can either get an answer back to those individuals or start the process of getting rid of a regulation that's just burdensome. Every agency, according to executive order, has to do a regulatory look back. We're going to help those agencies in that regulatory look back to be able to examine some of those regulations, what's onerous and what's actually working for Americans. I want to be able to introduce Ranking Member Heidi Heitkamp to also be able to make a statement about this.
Thank you so much, Senator Lankford. You might say, well, don't you hear every day in your offices about regulations and regulations that may be burdening businesses? And obviously, trade associations and trade groups frequently located on K Street come to our office and they prioritize what regulations give them concern and where we can begin to address some of the uncertainty. But when does Main Street get to weigh in? And so I like to think of this initiative as an opportunity to hear not only from K Street, but also from Main Street on what those regulatory burdens are, how they are in fact making it difficult for people to increase employment, difficult for people to actually do their job. You know, in my former life as a state official, I used to say, you know, we've got guys who are great mechanics, we've got guys who are great at fixing cars, and women who run great salons, and you know they're out there starting those small businesses that build America. Probably the biggest reason why I saw those businesses not be successful is because of the need to learn a whole new set of regulations, whether it's payroll regulations or whether it is environmental regulations, in order to be successful. And I think it's critically important that those businesses and those individuals have an opportunity to weigh in as we pursue a broader structural analysis of what's happening with regulatory reform and implementation of regulations in America. I want to add to what Senator Lankford has said, because I think sometimes not having regulation may be just as big of a problem. So we're looking at the whole gamut, and it may in fact reduce efficiencies. I think the best example of that has been the train tank car rules. For a number of years, the train industry and the rail industry and the oil and gas industry was looking for a new design of the 111 tank car. They asked DOT and FEMSA to get involved to actually participate. They took a pass on this, and as a result, we had the 1232 car, which literally millions of dollars have been invested in. Now we're looking at a different tank car standard, rendering those tank cars that have just only recently been built obsolete and in need of restructuring. And so I think one of the problems that we have here is frequently Congress enacts a law and says, we want you to regulate in this direction, and the regulators aren't given enough direction in terms of what they want to do, but the regulators are also given a time frame that's not realistic. And so as we proceed with this charge that we have on our committee, I think we look very forward to having an overarching analysis of regulation. I just want to make one final comment, because it's been my experience that frequently when government regulates, and it's obviously important that we have safe food, it's important that we have high quality drinking water, it's important that we have safe workplaces, and all of those things are important, but frequently the people of this country rely on quality regulations. They assume that they don't have to worry about the food standards, or they don't have to worry about the quality of the water, because a government entity is actually taking on the responsibility of that regulation. And I think if we don't do this right, we've then misled a whole group of people in this country as it relates to very important aspects of their daily life. And so we aren't here to criticize all regulation. I think far from it. I think we recognize that in many cases, many of these regulations are necessary. But are they being done in the most effective, efficient manner? And do they achieve the intended result? And these are the questions that we need to ask every day as we're analyzing the overarching regulatory scheme of this country. And so we're really excited. We hope that you help us publicize this. I think that it is going to provide a real opportunity for people in this country to feel like someone in Washington, D.C. is listening. Someone is hearing them when they're filling out duplicative paperwork. Someone is actually paying attention and wants to know and wants to fix these problems. I think it will go a long way to improve the quality and the efficiency of our government overall. And so I want to applaud Senator Lankford. We've not known each other for a long time, but we have found a commonality in the purpose of this committee, and we look forward in a time when it might be really hard to find in this town some real bipartisan effort. We're very proud that this is going to be a bipartisan effort. It's going to be an effort that we hope will actually produce results that can be supported by everyone in the United States Senate.
Yeah, we can take any additional questions you'd like to ask. Yes, ma'am.
Lydia Wheeler with The Hill. Can you talk a little bit more about the website and where people can go online to kind of, put this, so it's right on the committee's website?
It will be. It'll be on the committee's website. It'll be on the subcommittee's website. We're creating a template where individual members can put it on their individual websites. We've already had a lot of interest from other members saying they just want to be able to put that as something that people can click on for any individual in any state. So the goal of it is it's accessible. Any member can add it onto their website and have it as a spot where they know somebody's going to do that. That's our responsibility in our subcommittee, is dealing with regulatory affairs. And so as people communicate with us, we'll be able to communicate back. Someone from your district contacted us and get that information to them, and also be able to help them chase that down.
Were there specific regulations that brought this on, and can you speak to kind of what initiated this? Did someone come to your office, specifically a small business or something?
This actually was birthed out of a hearing from Homeland Security. We were in the process doing a series of questions, and we asked the question of OMB, where do people go if they have a problem? And the question really is, they have to go to the agency to be able to voice that. Well, most individuals don't know what agency even put their regulation out. People don't get up every morning and read the Federal Register. Okay, and so they don't know where that's coming from. Again, as Heidi mentioned, that's something K Street knows. Main Street doesn't know that. They just know there's some regulation that's a problem. So this is a way for ordinary Americans just to engage. I don't know where this is coming from, but here's what it is. And let me give you one quick example, and I want you to be able to share something as well. I had one of my businesses in my state that just had a major fine recently for not turning in a form to say they didn't have anything to turn in. So they suddenly find out they're not in compliance when they had nothing to report, but they were supposed to report they had nothing to report and didn't know it. It's that kind of stuff that people just say, okay, who created this rule? Where did it come from, and how do I fix it? And we have to have that opportunity to be able to engage with people, say, how do we fix it?
Right, and I think sometimes people are intimidated. If this is an enforcement agency that has the ability to enforce and levy fines, do you want to really anger them or anger the agency by complaining or pushing back? And I think they want somebody that they see as an independent analysis or an independent review. That's why we have OIRA at a high level, but we want to take this to a level where those kinds of regulations that every day America shakes their head and said, why do I need to do this? What is the purpose of this? And do they really understand? I want to give you an example that we received in our office that I think kind of talks about maybe from a parochial standpoint, because this obviously is a bigger issue in rural America. When regulations, one size fits all, and they say, well, go do this and go do that, I don't think they have, many times the regulators have a sense of what the burdens are when you live in a rural community, when you have to travel long distances. And this was a small business owner who runs a cleaning service in Grand Forks. He explained that they needed to clear employees for work. And they forced employees to travel an hour out of the way to get clearance rather than going down to the local law enforcement for that clearance and for that background check, charging the small business more per employee for that clearance. And they're like, I'm okay with meeting the standards and the requirements to make sure that this person can legally work in this country, but you've now cost me, any number of hours and maybe a potential employee, which in our state is a big deal since we have a worker shortage. And so these are the places and the issues that people sometimes just don't say anything about and feel a lot of resentment towards. And we want to open up this process by giving those people a portal, a place to actually raise these issues and get a response on why it needs to be this way. And if it doesn't need to be this way, what we're going to do to try and fix it. And I think so much of what we have right now with America being concerned about their government is that their government doesn't seem to listen to them. And what we really want to do is create a venue and an avenue for government to listen to Main Street.
And abbreviated on your question as well, it's on the committee website. There'll be another public website listing as well that'll link to it in the days ahead.
And we're hoping other members will put it on. We're hoping you will put it on. We're hoping trade groups and local chambers will encourage members. And we really want to hear from people. This isn't an exercise of simply saying, we did the outreach and checked the box. We want to hear this because I think what's going to happen is we may see, you asked what regulations led to this. We don't know what else is out there that people have concerns about. And so we're hoping that will rise to the top and we'll get a pretty good sense. Okay. Is it payroll? Is it environmental? Is it, workplace safety? What's the biggest concerns of small business in particular?
Yes, sir.
Kevin McGardis with Greenwire. Thanks for doing this press conference. Do you guys, you mentioned K Street and Main Street. Are you kind of hearing discrepancy from K Street if what they kind of want to see you guys fix among regulations compared to what you're hearing from Main Street
I think the inclination in K Street is to prioritize because they know if they barrage us with 20 of these things, and sometimes the things that don't go industry-wide. Back to my example of what may be not burdensome on somebody who lives in New York City, if that same person lives in Cooperstown, North Dakota, that's a whole different avenue. And so it may not rise to a national priority, but that person is a citizen of this country and a constituent of mine. I want to hear from them. And I know that all the members want to hear from them as they meet those challenges. So I don't mean to disparage K Street. I'm just saying, that's who gets the most amount of attention. And we want to offer an opportunity to people who think that they don't have that opportunity through a trade association.
A lot of the K Street conversations about larger businesses as well and international businesses with a larger footprint that can actually hire someone on to be able to look out for that particular industry. That's a reasonable thing for them to do. But this is also, regulations affect small and medium-sized businesses that don't have that same voice. So we want to provide that same opportunity to have that same voice for them.
And you guys have already started hearing back from small businesses on this, right? Is there any, I mean, this is kind of already been asked, but I mean, is there any particular regulations that have started to emerge?
Well,
that, like, are really
We,
problematic?
I've been working since I've gotten here on small community bank regulation. This has been, and I know James has too, I'm on the banking committee, and so I've been part of taking a look at a number of provisions. One of the examples is privacy notices. You know, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, you have to send a privacy notice. How many of you read the ones you get? No, you don't, because you just assume, okay, nothing's changed, nothing bad has happened. You'd probably read it if you knew that something changed in that privacy notice from year to year and you want to know what that change is. And so we have a bill that would do that. But that's just a kind of one simple little thing that could save my small community banks, you know, across the country, tens of millions of dollars, but yet we haven't done it. And so I think there's a number of jurisdictional committees that have actually begun to address this, but I think we're trying to come up with a better process overall and a better opportunity for small and medium-sized businesses to weigh in. And so, but I would give the community bank issue where, you know, they're getting, Dodd-Frank was supposed to stop too big to fail. It's become too small to succeed.
Yeah.
Here's one.
Yes, sir.
Senators, have you had any conversation, I know that that OMB was at the hearing, but have you had any conversations about launching this initiative with OMB? Because you might run into some things that are not needing legislative fixes, but there may just be some sort of administrative
Right.
maneuvering that-
Actually, that is the goal for us to land in two buckets. When we deal with a particular piece of a regulation that people say is a problem, there's a couple of questions. One is this someone that just doesn't like any regulation at all? We will have regulations. That's the extension of law. If we pass law, we have to have the regulations to go around it. So it may be a reasonable thing, and it's okay, I'm sorry, we have to have reasonable boundaries. So that may be one issue. Or it could be this is a problem. If it's a problem, there's really two solutions. One is, does the agency have enough authority right now to solve this on their own? Or do we have to pass a piece of legislation to fix it? Those two buckets will be the important thing to us. Who fixes this? How do we solve this? And then we go start the process. So then our committee staff on a bipartisan basis can start to contact agencies saying, we're getting a lot of input on this particular regulation. We've researched it. You have the authority to be able to fix this. We want to walk with you as you fix it. Or it could be that we actually work with the other committees of jurisdiction and say to them, we're getting a lot of impact on this. They'll probably say the same thing. We have ideas to be able to fix this in legislation. Let's start the process. So this is just the beginning part. Then we got to filter it out to figure out what's the best solution from there.
You need to remember some of the regulation for OIRA is under. You know, they aren't going to see it. And so that's the other kind of gap that we have here. There's supposed to be a look back, but it doesn't seem to be very successful given the growth of the federal Code of Federal Regulations. You know, how much of that really doesn't need to be there. And consequently, we have huge administrative costs in trying to understand regulations that have no real purpose or real effect in the real world.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that regulations do things like to protect our food and make sure we have safe food to eat. There's been kind of a lot of talk recently about you know, new bill that would force the agencies to make foods that are genetically modified have labels. Do you think that bill has any chance of passing Congress? I mean, could you comment on?
I'm on the agriculture committee too. They put me on a lot of committees. I think think it keeps me out of trouble. The GMO labeling is a touchy consumer issue, and a lot of the movement right now to do a national standard is because people are concerned about state by state standards creating disruption in the marketplace. Congress obviously has the responsibility to regulate interstate commerce. I'm of the mind that GMO foods have been around a long time. We've been doing hybrids, and quite honestly, I think that it is this kind of development helps us feed the world. So I'm on the side, but again, I also appreciate consumers when they feel like they have a need to know. So I think that issue is more of a preemption issue than it actually is a GMO issue.
So are you saying that you don't think the labeling is necessary, or?
I'm saying that many consumers believe it is, and a lot of people who are engaged in the industry want a national standard as opposed to a state-by-state standard. So your question isn't so much about food safety as it is about preemption.
Yes, sir.
Just more about generally regulatory reform. I mean, this tends to, bipartisan effort today, but, they're talking about another Chamber House Judiciary Committee just marked up like four bills on Tuesday. All Republicans support, Democrats against it. It doesn't seem to be such a bipartisan issue. That said, there was a bill, your committee, the Homeland Security Government Affairs, delayed a vote on the Portman bill, the federal
Yeah,
permitting act. I mean, I'm probably,
Yeah.
Right.
I wrote down the title.
that was
here.
bipartisan.
Yeah.
I think
Federal
Claire's
Permitting
the,
Improvement Act.
Yeah.
Have you got, and the
Yeah,
vote was
make a comment
delayed
about
because
that.
it actually seemed to attract interest from the White House.
It did, and let me make a comment about that. It was delayed. OMB wanted a greater opportunity to be able to integrate with that and have the conversation on it. We did delay it. It is coming back in the next markup. They've had the opportunity to be able to talk about that and continue moving. If you want to see some bipartisan effort, you look at the last markup we did in Homeland Security. There were 9 different bills dealing with regulations, all passed by voice vote out of our committee that are all headed to the floor. So our commitment is we have wide agreement on a lot of these areas. Again, this is not a Republican or a Democrat area. It's a bureaucracy area. And quite frankly, I meet a lot of folks that are in the bureaucracy that also have an equal amount of frustration. They want their voices to be heard as well, and to have the option to be able to share those things out with people and say, here are good options and good solutions to deal with this. So what I think is important is we're going to work very hard on a bipartisan basis. There's a lot of common ground, areas where we have differences. We can talk those differences out, find our common ground area, and start trying to solve some of these problems.
Are you guys planning on offering any legislation, you two together on this?
well, we hope to come to a conclusion after going to all of these hearings, listening. What's been great is I think we both learn every time people come in. This isn't like we're going to sit you down and you hopefully say what I want you to say, and then we're not going to engage in a discussion. We're just going to say, see, I told you so, which is what a lot of congressional hearings are. Ours have not been that. They've been really freewheeling. What do you think? I think people have brought great ideas to the table. We constantly engage even after those hearings. What did you hear? What did you like? What do you think we can work on? And my great hope is that this is one area. You know, a lot of great regulatory restrictions are in executive orders. They don't seem to get complied with. And so this isn't a partisan issue. I think we have a real opportunity here, given our interest, our personal interest in doing something, to actually move something forward. And I really have to applaud the chairman for his approach to all of this. I think he's looking for those things, the 80% that we can agree on, that we can move forward on. I mean, he's been a great leader for this committee, and I'm glad that this is the one I got, this committee, because I really appreciate my chairman. I think this is a place where we really can make a statement to the American public. We are listening, and we're putting aside the partisan, and we're trying to deal with the bulk of this that really will help you.
Last question.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
y'all very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Well, good job as well, so thanks. We got all the good work to do.